Hello, everyone. LTJ Reeds here, and this is Throwing Light. And if you're not throwing light, you're not acting right. This is welcome to summer school. Yeah, and this is the first episode. You're probably like, what is summer school? Basically, I decided to put a collection of people together that I think their stories and their passions can help educate us on being better about recognizing everybody's identity and making sure that everyone feels welcome in our community. So that's kind of the gist of summer school. My first guest for the first episode is going to be Stormy. And the topic for today is check your bias at the door. So let's go ahead and get started. But before we get started again, remember Ashwell ATX. If you can, please go over there, ashwellatx.org. Check out what they're doing. They're a local organization in our community that helps make sure that we are healthy, and we really love them and we want to show them support. If you are in the Austin area, hop over to ashwellatx.org, or anyone that's watching this, if you'd like to donate, they even have a food bank, ashwellatx.org. That being said, Stormy, you are my first guest for our summer school special this July. And hey, what's up?
Not much. I am doing all right. I had a really chill weekend at home to recharge. So I'm feeling super energized and super excited to be here.
So I do want to let everybody know that I actually came up with this idea through talking to Stormy. Stormy had contacted me. I apologize for how long it took. We got to connect. We actually got to talk, have a conversation. She'll attest to you, like it's hard to keep me in a spot for a short amount of time because everyone's kind of pulling me everywhere. So it was nice to have a moment to actually connect. And we
Yeah.
thought about just how important it is for us to start, treating each other with respect by acknowledging who we really are truthfully. And I think that's kind of what this stemmed from. So, we're focusing on checking your biases at the door. Stormy, why don't you tell people a little bit about you and what brought you into the community?
Yeah. So I'm actually from East Texas. So I was born in Longview and you know, raised in a tiny little trailer park with by a single mom. Come from absolutely, just Southern hospitality. And that kind of influences who I am and my work ethic. But I graduated, first gen college student, made it to the Metroplex after a divorce. And I've been in the community for almost a decade now. 2028 will be my decade marker. But I, went through a traumatic divorce. Pandemic happened, and I don't think, unless you came out as queer or figured out you were finally neurodivergent, I don't think you really went through the pandemic at all. So, but yeah, that's how I found the community. It was online, felt life, like many of us. I knew I was kinky from a young age. Tumblr was super impactful for me, reading stuff online, just kind of doing my own research and just exploration. But yeah, I was part of the Dallas community for several years before I actually moved here, driving back and forth. I think we have a few people who do that still. But yeah, I'm active in Austin and I have several friends down in Houston. Love our San Antonio community, so our greater East Texas and or Central Texas, Oklahoma area. But I've traveled all over the country presenting, and I'm really passionate about what I do. I'm the owner and producer of Arlington Leather United. So we are a entry ramp into the leather community in the DFW Metroplex. We also are really passionate about providing safe sex materials for everyone, not just external condoms. So that includes dental dams, that includes internal condoms, that includes Plan B kits that are provided by Planned Parenthood. So that on top of many other things, it's kind of what I do. So AOU's been in progress for about 2 years. We'll hit 2 years in March of 2025. And we're just filling the hole where we see it. So
That
that's
is
me.
awesome. That is fantastic. That is so cool.
Yeah,
So, let's talk a little bit about, how you fit into the community. So, how do you identify?
sure. So, we have this, do you see this joke on TikTok, right? I mean, like a super long identifier. I'm just queer. I was assigned female at birth. I feel like I have struggled with my own transness in its own way of being agender or no or like non-binary. But I am just me. I'm queer. I'm as gay as they come, and religious trauma does that. So um, I don't have any specific pronouns. I am femme at work. I am very fluid. So if I have to put labels on it, I'm non-binary or agender. Um, if I have to pick a sexuality, it's going to be being pansexual or just gay. I just hear about the person. I really don't assign a lot of labels to myself, but it does help me in the times where I have to identify myself, such as these.
Since you've been in the community, have like when from the moment you first stepped in 2018, like where were you in your journey when you first started?
I was still in a marriage, a cis het white presenting marriage, and had not checked my racism and homophobia and transphobia. I have done a lot of work internally, externally, unlearning a lot of really hateful systems that I was raised in. Um, all of that. So, it was a lot. The very first step for me figuring out who I was coming out as pan. And my ex-husband was like, well, that doesn't mean you're going to do anything about it, right? And I'm like, no, that's not how that works. So yeah, I mean, I started with my sexuality first because that felt like the easiest bit to chomp through. So um yeah, that's how we got started at least.
Okay. So what you as a person, do you hope that through your truth and expressing your gender that you are inspiring other people to do just the same?
Yes. And sorry, my cat might join. But I it was a matter of life or death for me. And I think that it is for many people whenever they choose themselves. But not only was I getting out of an abusive relationship, but I had lived someone else's narrative for so long. So it was really important to me to continue to live my own narrative or begin that in its own journey way, in its own sense.
Have you, what do you feel has, what, can you think of a situation that helped like free you in this journey towards your own identity? Like, was there a moment? So you said you did a lot of work. How did you get to the moment where you freed yourself from your cis female life?
Sure. Like just how I was just
What
like
was the moment
like
you're like, "Hey,
society introduced.
I'm not being authentic to myself." What was that moment?
It was the very first time I attended a public kink event. It was Fetish Ball like 2018. It was the very first time that I had ever wore fetish wear out in public. And I say fetish wear very loosely because it was a skimpy piece of something that I threw together and wore rope in public for the first time. Um, I looked around and everyone was so happy and everyone was living their most authentic selves in this dimly lit lizard lounge in Dallas, Texas. And it was so it was just so wonderful to see everybody living their true selves. So I realized in that moment, I was like, this is kind of it for me. And then it just kind of um, went downhill from there. So
So downhill? Is that what you think? Down?
uphill, I don't know. No, I was honestly, it was all uphill from there. But it was a downhill kind of like spiral in my own way of challenging myself, realizing that this is something that I wanted to become more of a part of. I was a weekend warrior for a while. I found kink before I found leather. Um, so that was, I went as far as I could in kink and I wanted more. I wanted to be able to give back more. I wanted to be more involved. So uphill or downhill, it's all perspective.
Um, was it so? You were in a marriage. Has your viewpoint or your ideas of marriage shifted since the first marriage that you had?
Absolutely. I have a D type. His name is Jim Jam. He is also in the leather community. We knew each other in the East Texas area for a very long time before we actually started dating. We lived together, we nesting partners, and we both were in marriages of our own before we started dating each other. And now that we're looking at commitment, and as a polyamorous person, you know, um, I've gotten to challenge a lot of ideas about marriage and commitment and what that all means. So um, being well versed and ethically non-monogamous is pretty important to me.
Do you truly, through your journey with gender and sexuality, do you feel seen? Do you feel heard?
Yes and no. So there are specific spaces, obviously, in your life that you can't be super loud about. For instance, I have to have a job. to live in America. You have to have an income. And I do have student loan debt, so I preferred to, get a job within the field that I went to school for. So I can't exactly be out and proud constantly at work because some people just don't want to see it. But there are also places where I do feel absolutely seen. And that's more or less in the spaces that I've made for myself and other people have made for people like me. So
Let's talk a
it's a
little
little bit of a 50-50.
let's talk a little bit about agender and your journey with that struggle. Will
Sure.
you explain
Yeah.
to everyone what agender means and your journey?
Yeah. Yeah. So agender and non-binary sometimes are used within the like same realm. I don't feel as if there's like so I it's a really, really hard explanation. If you Google it, it's a lot easier, but we're not going to use the Google definition. So non-binary is existing without either male or female. Agender, I feel like personally for me, is it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of both constantly, also not at the same time. It's fluid. Other people use terms like gender fluid. It's really whatever you feel fits you best. So I am constantly both masculine and feminine at the same time. Um, I like to just joke around and say I like to be androgynous. I don't want to be so androgynous that you're confused. That's the whole point for me. So um, I like both. I used non-binary for a while until I had some agender friends that were like, maybe you maybe have you ever heard of this? Have you ever heard of this term? And I'm like, no. So I was educated in that moment. It was like, oh wow, I really actually identify with that. Thank you for sharing. So honestly, I was raised to be a wife. I was raised to be a mom. I'm the oldest of five. I've pretty much raised two children on my own, as my mom worked three jobs. So it was one of those things where I've already done the thing. I've already, seen two kids to teenagerhood. I've built a house. I've done the marriage thing. Now it's time to live for myself. And part of that was exploring gender. So um, it's weird. It's fun. I love society's expectations of gender and like what you're supposed to do as a man and what you're supposed to do as a woman. But I'm neither. So it makes dating very fun. So
So you said at work you're femme. Like, are you do you talk about your sexuality at work or gender at all?
So I say at work I'm femme. Femme is the default for me, especially clothing wise, because that's what fits my body. That's how I know how to shop, right? So I do have some more masculine pieces, but that's also part of the struggle is finding clothes to fit your body and body image issues and dysphoria and dysmorphia as well with many trans individuals. And I, sometimes don't feel trans enough. Um, Sometimes I don't feel feminine enough as I'm getting lots of questions lately about my gender, which I love answering. But at a certain point, I've had someone from the BIPOC community use this example really well. And it is, offering yourself up on a silver platter kind of gets exhausting. So, yes, I am out at work, but to very few people. So, the people I know who will respect it, I know them well enough, So, like, my boss knows, but like, it's not a topic that ever really comes up, Pride Month came around and I was like, hey, by the way, because I trust him, but it's not something that I like lead a meeting with. So I have a progress Pride flag at my desk. I show up in my Doc Martens and, I'm the personality hire. So everybody knows, but like it's not something that's talked about constantly because I do want to keep it professional and keep it career.
So let's talk about it. Check your bias at the door. What does that mean?
Yeah. So that means that I myself, within the past 2 weeks, even with our own interaction, got to check myself very quickly with my own assumption of, your identifying factor and where you exist within the leather community, right?
Right.
It was oh, well, this is where you exist, and like you're Mr. Austin Eagle, like 2023, I think, right? Whatever year we're in, 2024. So I forget what year it is. Anyway, you exist in these spaces and you're like, well, actually, Stormy, that's not how a lot of people identify. So even personally checking my bias of, thinking these thoughts or having these things that come to my mind, and I'm like, oh, well, actually, let's check that real quick. And being open to being checked and being open to that call in versus that calling someone out. Of, hey, did you know? Like, let's talk about it. You keep using the wrong pronouns for so and so. Let's have a chat. Do you have a second? Let's talk about how you made someone feel. Or, just being accountable for your actions, especially as community chaos coordinators. I do not like to call myself a leader. I do not like to call myself anything. I'm just a hot mess express over here. So,
But community chaos organizers.
it's a chaos coordinator. So,
Wow. I'm gonna let me
yeah,
write this down to add it to my let me okay.
yep,
Chaos, chaos. What say it one more time?
chaos coordinator.
Chaos coordinator. Okay. Okay, y'all,
Yeah.
did you hear that? You gotta know the difference between leaders and chaos coordinators because there's a difference.
I mean, and again, assumptions we just make about people, right? Because people see me leading groups and leading events and leading munches and doing the stuff at the conventions and whatever I decide to do because it's my journey. I made that choice, right? Whatever. I did it because I wanted to create that space that I didn't have when I came into the Dallas community. And so, you get assigned this title or this assumption that people make. So again, checking that bias of I'm just me. We're just us hanging out on a Sunday evening. We just want to I think I want to make the world better than I found it. And I think many people do too. So
Kind of getting into things like biases, there's a difference between not being aware and having a bias and being
yes,
aware and having a bias. And I think there some people are like it was completely a harmless moment between me and you talking about that,
absolutely.
completely
Yeah.
harmless. And I think that people need to not. I think this is what I see, especially from non-binary people. I think there's a frustration of how is having to and set your boundaries of what your gender in, and you expect
Yeah.
people to do it right. And I can see sometimes non-binary people are getting frustrated because they have to keep explaining. They have to make this space. They have to make this space known. It's a little bit. It's hard, but non-binary people have to fight for that space.
Yeah.
So but we're used to, these were not the conversations we were having 20 years ago, not even really 10 years ago.
No.
And so we're now understanding that we have all these capabilities and possibilities of the human experience. And gender and sexuality is one of those.
Yeah. So when I was at the bar last night, 1851 is ALU's summer in Arlington, Texas, and we engaged in Arlington. I get some very fun conversations at this bar, right? So we have anybody can walk through that door. The mayor, anybody can walk through that door, and we welcome them in, no problem. It's just a small little dive bar, and I had this conversation with this woman, and she didn't understand the difference between sexuality and gender. And so like I'm finding myself in these spaces, like it's not it's not a bad thing that somebody doesn't know. It's just is the person even willing to listen?
That.
And so I'm grateful for the grace that was given to me, and I hope to extend that grace to other people constantly. There's a difference between people assuming something and not even knowing that they have a bias. They won't even come to the person. They won't even offer a chance to have a conversation. There's an assumption that's been made and a decision that's already been made, and you haven't been part of that decision. So it's just kind of how the human brain and the interactions that we have within the community work. So I just, again, am grateful for the grace that I was given in that moment between us, and again, hope to extend it to other people. So
We don't like ourselves being presented to the mainstream world as what I say is we're more than our gender and our sexualities. And I
I
think
call it consumables.
elaborate consumables. What does that mean?
Yep. So I'm not something for you to fetishize. I'm not something for you to consume. I'm not like I used to be a sex worker. So I was literally for consumption for people who wanted, you know, to hang out with me, whatever. So um as someone who's done that and has been consumable in that sense, even my existence in media or people like me, you get these like fetishization of these things that people seek out. So it's just one of those things that I'm not here for you to consume. I'm just here.
I feel like
So
our those that are living heterosexual lives that are coming into our community on the DL and asking for these experiences and fetishes. That's
yeah,
what's really the main. That's where a lot of your clientele is coming from, because this whole idea of being straight, that's a whole nother conversation, because that's very
absolutely it is.
not that, because even I mean, heterosexuals are denying themselves of all these experiences because they're just so dead set on, like, I have to do this because I have a vagina and I have a penis. And
Yeah,
just something as simple as sex and not understanding that can make the human experience not the best life for you. And I know people are like, what he's saying, sex.
yeah,
No, like, if you don't have knowledge about anything, you're not going to live your best life. It doesn't matter where you apply it at. And sex is something that we
exactly.
clearly need an education on as human being. Look, we were born into this world naked. Why do you have people, the human beings, creating religion and saying that women need to have cloth all over them? And then, like, what is that? That's a humans did that. Humans created this. What, you're born naked. We would be naked right now if it weren't for some people that were just someone was insecure about themselves. What, 100,000 years ago? I don't know. That's why we're in this situation, basically.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
but it just it really gets to me.
Yeah,
Because we're villainized a lot just for being to know better than that. Like, just because I'm body positive, you may be body positive, I might be okay going and showing up to an event with no clothes on. That does not dictate the character of a person. That is so, like, you understand where I'm
yeah.
coming from?
And I'm really interested to hear your experience with the gay male community, as I know it to be very touch heavy, very like guys will walk up like that's how it was, is that's they're flirting with you, is that they're going to grope you. So I'm interested to know like your experience as someone who may or may not like facilitate that or enjoy it. Like, how do you exist in those spaces?
Wish I could tell this story 100% in an honest way, but I cannot. But it did occur
That's
at
okay.
Eagle. And well, it has to do with my judging experience. So I'm going to stop with that. I won't continue, but I'm going
Sure.
to say this
Yeah.
experience that happened at the Dallas Eagle was someone inappropriately, not focused on me as a person, and they were focused on my body and all that. So, like, instead of having a
Sure.
conversation with me, they're this, doing all that. And I almost brought it up. I almost said something, but I decided that I was going to let that moment pass. Hopefully, it did not happen a second time. So, um, this is the deal. And what I was trying to get at the point is that we do a disservice when we stereotype ourselves. Okay. And,
Absolutely.
I am not a gay man, and I am not of gay culture. Gay culture and leather culture are two different things.
Yes.
And then
Yes,
there's
yes,
also
yes, that.
consuming culture that is
Hmm.
fed to heterosexuals, what you are willing to purchase and tolerate from us. So whatever is in the gay mainstream typically is based off, oh, how the straight people sympathize with two men, basically.
Yep.
People have to understand that gay men have this marketing cloud over the rest of us, because that is how the heterosexual community, this country, is viewing progress. How well are two men accepted in a relationship? I did not say two women. I said how well two men are accepted in a relationship. Women are treated like they're a phase just as much as I, as a bisexual person, is treated like a phase. Like, this is where we come into it. I deal with gay men of gay mainstream culture coming at me in very inappropriate ways, in ways that you would not want to do. But, like, we can flip it, because straight women do come into gay spaces sometimes and they overstep their boundaries a lot, because they think that just because they're not straight men in there, they can do things. And that's the conversation. And because that's coming into spaces and being appropriate. And you would not want a straight man, to treat you that way. You shouldn't want to come in this space and treat a man. But I have to, not always, I'm here to work for all the people, but sometimes I do have to assert to people and let you know I do not think like a gay man. of the gay culture that we are fed. I don't think that all gay men are gay mainstream culture, but gay mainstream culture is what the rest of this country is willing to digest of us. It's not who we are.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
that's a conversation. So
It
Stormy,
is. It sounds like its own separate episode.
that we, please hold on to that because we can have a part two and can pick up with this. We've come
Yeah.
towards the end of Throwing Light, Stormy. Every time I come to the end of any episode in which I have a single guest, maybe two guests, I ask them the same question: is there any aspect of our community that you don't think that we are shedding light on that we should shed light on?
Voting, voting in your county, voting in your state, voting not just in presidential elections, but if you're not registered to vote in the year of our Lord and Savior 2024, I encourage you to get online and Google register to vote state of Texas. You can literally handle it online. If you are not up to date, this upcoming election is going to determine, and or we already have several Supreme Court justice opinions that have come out that have determined a lot of things that are going to happen to us in the next 6 months to a year. So again, get out there and vote. And if you have questions about how to register to vote, I'm accessible.
So with Stormy saying that, everybody, I came up with the idea. You watch it out because there's going to be a Throwing Light special called Voting, and we're going to be.
Ooh,
So you just heard it first. It ain't happening
nice.
this month. It ain't happening in August, but this will surely drop by September. So we're going to have a Throwing Light voting because I don't know if at the time that you watch this show, the presidential debate happened and baby, child, girl, everyone, girlfriend, mama, child, people, everybody, girl, just not to be
Oh,
cliche, but y'all know the movie goes with Whoopi Goldberg. America, you in danger, girl. You in danger. And we gotta vote.
we all
We
we
are
all
in
are.
trouble right now. And
Yeah.
everyone does not see that. They're a part of the problem. But I see a lot of people that are not a part of the problem that are like, fuck. So I think
Yep.
we're going to have to bulldoze this vote to keep the progress going, even though we don't like and feel completely invested and the side that says that they're out there for us. But we don't have a choice, y'all. This isn't an election to fracture. This isn't where we decide to
Yep.
go. We literally have to vote together this election, and that's the truth.
Absolutely.
It can't be one. No, we all have to vote together this election.
Yep.
Um,
I'm thinking about throwing some poll parties, polling place parties, and as we came together at the Capitol as leather people for the trans bill and the drag bill, like we need to do it to vote. So that's the one thing that I can think of that I think we
Fantastic,
need to
and
throw a light on more.
I will be working with you because we know what it's time to get that going. And so I just want to let you know I will be a megaphone. I will do anything. I will take
Yeah.
whatever your ideas are and amplify them to whatever degree you need to be there. I'm here for you. I want you to succeed, and
Thanks.
you are necessary. So I want you to know that. And I'm very very glad that I found time to reconnect with you and get you on the show. And we got you on the show very
Me
quickly.
too. I'm very grateful. Very grateful. I do like things that happen fast. I'm very spontaneous in the sense of like, let's just get it done. I hate putting things off for months and months. Like, we'll get it, we'll do it, we'll get together. That's one thing our community is really good at is like not being proactive. And so I'm very grateful for the time and just having me on.
Here we go. All right, y'all. That brings us to the
All
end
right.
of Going Light. This was our first episode of Summer School Pet Special. And if you're watching, the next episode is called the IML Class 46. And that means that 7 of my IML siblings and myself, for the first time for an hour special, will get to talk to you about the IML experience. With that being said, y'all, if you're not throwing light, you're not acting right. Bye, Stormy.
Bye. See ya.